This story follows two students, Emma and Dean, who find themselves stranded on an island, where they unexpectedly fall in love. The story begins with Emma, a popular student with many admirers. On the other hand, there's Dean, a laid-back guy who frequently calls Emma prom queen, but Emma doesn't seem to be bothered by his teasing. One morning, Emma wakes up, gets ready for school and checks her calendar to see what she has planned. Meanwhile, Dean lazily gets out of bed, heads to the bathroom and starts playing video games. His father, Jack, reminds him that he's going to be late for school. Emma's mom, Barb, drives Emma and her younger sister, Stacy, to school. Stacy, feeling overlooked, complains that everyone likes Emma but no one seems to care about her and walks off in frustration. Later, Emma meets up with her friend Lily. Soon after, Steven, a popular athlete, shows up and teases Emma, which prompts Lily to join in on the teasing as well. Later that day in class, their teacher, Mr. Johnson, announces that a bus will depart for a school trip the next morning at 7 a.m. The class buzzes with excitement, and Emma enters the room just as Dean bumps into her, calling her prom queen once again before walking away. Mr. Johnson provides details about the trip, informing the class that they'll be spending 3 days on an island learning about it. Lily then tells Emma that Dean is only going because his dad paid for his spot, and she even makes a face at him. At lunch, Lily shares her thoughts about the situation between Emma and Dean. She suggests that Emma should try to get closer to Steven over the next 2 weeks, but Emma insists she's focused on the upcoming trip. As Lily talks about the trip, Emma's attention drifts to Dean, who is cutting an apple with a knife. This sight seems to irritate Lily. Helen then mentions that she and Dean used to study together and insists that Dean is a good guy, although Lizzie disagrees and their friends side with Helen. Afterward, Miss Collier, a teacher, takes the knife from Dean, but he doesn't seem to care. The teacher then calls him to the principal's office for breaking school rules. Lizzie warns her friends that Emma shouldn't associate with someone like Dean, especially since Steven likes her. The following day, Emma gets ready for the trip and thanks her parents. Meanwhile, Dean's dad reminds him how much effort he put into securing Dean's place on the trip. Mr. Christian then instructs the students to board the bus. Emma's mom tells her to be careful, and Dean's dad offers the same advice before they board. On the bus, Steven asks Emma how she's doing and Lily teases Emma once more. After a few hours of travel, the students arrive at their destination. Miss Collier announces that they have a few hours to enjoy themselves before dinner. Emma and her friends head to the swimming pool, where Emma and Steven have fun swimming together. Suddenly, Emma notices Dean staring at her from a balcony, and when he sees Steven with his arm around her waist, he walks away. The next morning, the students begin building a bridge for kids. Dean starts working on some artwork, which irritates Steven, who warns Emma that Dean will ruin their trip. Later that evening, Jude tells Emma that Steven has invited them all to a party. Emma is reluctant to go, but her friends convince her to join. At the party, Emma searches for Helen, but instead she spots Steven kissing another girl. This sight saddens Emma and she decides to leave. As she passes by Dean, he asks her if she likes Steven. Emma, upset, snaps at him, telling him to mind his own business. At that moment, the police arrive and instruct everyone to leave the ship. In the chaos, Emma accidentally falls into the water. Dean sees her and immediately jumps in to rescue her. As Emma screams for help, they manage to get onto a small boat. Dean cuts the rope attached to the boat to prevent them from drifting back toward the ship, but Emma scolds him for doing so. She wants to return, but Dean tells her it's too dangerous to do so right now. Just then, a fierce storm emerges, and they try to steer the boat toward the ship. However, a massive wave strikes them, flipping the boat over. The following day, the trip is cancelled due to the previous night's party, but Lily tells Miss Collier that Emma is missing. Miss Collier assumes Emma is with someone else, but Lily clarifies that she last saw Emma on the boat. Meanwhile, Emma and Dean have been swept into the Caribbean Sea. Dean checks his phone but finds it dead, then asks Emma for hers but there's no signal. Back at the hotel, Mr. Johnson is taking attendance and notices Dean is missing. Emma tells Dean they should have gone back to the ship. They spot an island nearby and Dean navigates the boat toward it. The police begin questioning everyone. Miss Collier asks if there's any way to save the kids, but the police say finding them would be difficult. Lily grows anxious upon hearing this. Somehow, Emma and Dean manage to reach the island. Emma checks her phone but there's no signal. Dean pulls a gun from the boat for safety. Meanwhile, Jack, Dean's father, learns that his son is missing and rushes to the school where he meets Emma's mother, Barbara. Everyone is worried and questions the principal about the missing kids, but he can offer no answers, so they leave. On the island, Emma and Dean search for shelter. They find a beautiful waterfall deep in the forest, and Dean asks Emma to take his picture, but she refuses, fearing it might lead to more danger. After some time they reach the shore but there's no one there. They decide to continue searching and find a cave. Dean asks Emma to turn on her phone's flashlight, but suddenly a swarm of bats emerges, sending them both jumping into the waterfall in panic. When they reach the shore again, their boat is gone, leaving only a jacket behind. They begin searching for supplies to build a raft and head home. As the sun sets, Dean stares at it, lost in thought. Emma asks him to start a fire, but he doesn't respond. When she asks what he's thinking, Dean quickly makes up an excuse. Emma shares some food from her bag with him. Meanwhile, their parents are at the airport, preparing to fly out to search for their children. Back on the island, Emma and Dean set up camp for the night. Emma asks Dean why he calls her prom queen, and he responds that it's because she's simply the best girl. Suddenly, Emma hears a noise, but Dean reassures her that it's nothing. Emma checks her phone again, but there's still no signal. As they settle down to sleep, Emma feels cold, so Dean gives her his shirt to keep her warm. She tells him that her family will find them. Later, Emma hears another sound. The next morning, Dean sees Emma writing SOS in the sand. He asks her for her phone, but it's already dead. Dean then goes for a swim in the ocean to keep busy. Meanwhile, Mr. Johnson informs the parents that the police have found the boat, but there's still no sign of Emma and Dean. Jack hands Johnson money to assist with the search, and Barbara insists on accompanying him. Back on the island, Emma is gathering water from a river when she hears a strange noise. She quickly runs back to Dean, who watches her continue marking the SOS. They eat some fruit and work on building a shelter together. Dean eventually falls asleep and Emma lies beside him. He puts his arm around her waist, but she says nothing. The next morning, Emma heads to shower under the waterfall. Dean asks for sunscreen, but when Emma tells him it's in her bag, he can't find it. Emma suggests someone else on the island might be taking their things. Back at the hotel, Barbara watches the news while Emma's parents prepare to meet Stacy. Barbara looks sad and Phil hugs her in support. Jack, meanwhile, boards a helicopter to search for his son. On the island, Emma is trying to start a fire when she spots a skull. She screams in fear, but Dean reassures her, telling her that if they stick together, they'll make it home. Dean then kisses her. That night, they talk for a while, and in the morning, Emma wakes up to find that Dean is gone. She starts calling for him and eventually finds him digging a hole to bury the skull. When she asks what he's doing, Dean tells her he doesn't need her help. Emma suddenly trips and injures herself. Dean cleans her wound and they both head to the waterfall to bathe. Afterward, Dean opens up about his mother. As rain starts to fall, Dean enjoys it while Emma watches him. They come closer and share a kiss. A month later, news reports confirm that the search for Emma and Dean has been officially called off. Emma's friends still believe she's alive, and Barbara holds on to the same hope. Jack takes Barbara in a helicopter to continue the search, but after a long effort, Jack tells Barbara that no trace of Emma and Dean has been found, and they return home in disappointment. Meanwhile, Dean tells Emma about a mysterious green light that appears at sunset. Both of them have adapted to life on the island and have grown closer. One day while Emma is sleeping in the forest, she hears the sound of a helicopter. Dean hears it too and quickly starts a fire to signal. Emma rushes to him, but by the time they reach the spot, the helicopter has already flown away. Emma realizes that some of their supplies might have been stolen. Months pass, and with no rescue in sight, Emma and Dean decide to venture into the forest to survive. While doing so, they hear the growl of an animal. Dean moves toward the sound and Emma follows. Dean spots a black panther and tries to run, but slips and falls. Emma catches up to him just in time to see him kill the panther with a knife. Back home, people begin to forget about Emma and Dean. On the island, Emma and Dean learn to survive, hunting and building shelters. Emma keeps track of their days by marking a rock. One day, Emma falls ill and Dean asks if she might be pregnant, but she denies it. They talk and lie down together when suddenly their lost belongings begin falling from above. They look up and see a monkey throwing their things. Emma shoots a shot into the air to scare it away, angering Dean, leading to a heated argument. Emma storms off. Later, while Dean is fishing, Emma returns to apologize. Dean forgives her, and just as they reconcile, a helicopter flies by and spots them on the shore. They are finally rescued and eventually arrive at the airport, where their parents and friends greet them with joy. However, both Emma and Dean feel uneasy now that they're back. One night, Dean visits Emma's house and tells her he doesn't feel right being back. He leans in to kiss her, but Emma invites him to a party the next day instead. At the party, everyone seems happy, but Stacy notices Dean isn't mingling. He says he doesn't feel comfortable there and signals for Emma to come over. She ignores him and he leaves the party. Emma has become famous, but Dean watches her from a distance, feeling out of place. A few days later, Emma calls Dean but he doesn't pick up. Stacy tells Emma she feels like nobody likes her, and Emma reassures her by saying she's a great sister. They hug. The next day, Dean visits his mother's grave and mentions seeing the mysterious green light on the day of the party. Dean's father gives him a jacket to keep warm. Meanwhile, Lily takes Emma to see Dean. When Emma spots him, she steps outside the party and kisses him, bringing the story to a close.